Chapter 1. The meeting on the boat. The sun had just dipped behind the mountains, leaving the sky a deep shade of indigo stretching over the shimmering river. Modern, luxurious boats glided by, carrying laughter and dazzling lights. But amid the bustling harbor, Starlight lay quietly anchored, like a fragment of the town's old memories. The small boat, its paint faded and wood rusted in places, still sailed every evening. Lila Monroe, the boat's owner and sole operator, stood on the deck, gently wiping the glass windows. To her, Starlight was more than just a boat. It was a family heirloom, a cultural symbol of the town where her father had spent his life preserving and passing it down. However, that peace was under threat. A large corporation planned to seize the river, replacing the small boats with modern cruise ships, erasing the charm that had existed for generations. Starlight might be one of the last remaining boats, and Lila knew that losing it meant losing not just a piece of heritage, but a part of the town's soul. Across the dock, Ethan Hayes strolled leisurely along the riverbank, his polished leather shoes crunching against the gravel. The glint of his expensive watch caught the harbor lights, but no one paid attention. In this small town, luxury meant little. Ethan didn't care either. A few days earlier, he had sat in the highest office of Hayes Maritime, the largest maritime corporation in the region, where his decisions could alter the fate of coastal cities. But the higher he rose, the lonelier he felt. Endless meetings, towering stacks of contracts, and the pressure to take over the company from his demanding father. It all felt suffocating. He couldn't remember the last time he felt truly free. The trip to this riverside town wasn't planned. Ethan had driven out of the city as night fell, with no destination, no map. The harbor lights and the sight of small boats anchored silently by the river made him stop. It reminded him of childhood summers, days spent on small boats with his mother, drifting along the river during family trips. Before she passed, she once said, "Some things money can't replace, like these small boats in this river." Now, his father wanted to buy the river, demolishing boats like these to make way for modern cruise ships. Ethan hadn't opposed it. He never believed an old boat or a quiet river held value beyond profit. As he stopped by a small dock, his gaze lingered on Starlight. There was something about the worn boat that held him there longer than usual. Just then, a light breeze loosened the anchor rope, causing the boat to drift slightly away. Without thinking, Ethan stepped toward the slipping rope, quickly pulling it back and fastening it securely. Lila, stepping off the boat, smiling half playfully. "First time I've had a tourist help me save the boat? Planning to trade labor for a ride?" Ethan, smiling, adjusting his sleeves. "I wouldn't mind if it gets me a free ticket." Lila, tilting her head, eyes playful. "Fine, but you'll have to help me clean up after." "No one rides Starlight for free." Ethan chuckled. Lila's straightforwardness and simplicity made him feel at ease, a rare feeling in recent months. Ethan, nodding. "Deal." The cruise began. Ethan stepped aboard and chose a seat near the deck, where he could watch the city lights reflect on the water. Lila took the wheel, her eyes gleaming with pride as the boat set off, gliding smoothly over the river she had known since childhood. Ethan sat quietly, listening to the gentle lapping of water against the hull. Little did he know, this boat and the woman steering it were about to become an essential part of his life, a part he never expected. Welcome to today's story. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories. Chapter 2. Days of Companionship. The Starlight quietly returned to the dock, the golden lights of the town reflecting gently on the water. Passengers gradually disembarked, leaving the boat empty beneath the tranquil night sky. Ethan stood on the deck, holding a cloth as promised, wiping down the weathered wooden benches. Lila secured the ropes, moving swiftly with the practiced ease of someone who had spent her life by the water. Lila sitting on a bench near Ethan, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Not bad. I could hire you as a deckhand." Ethan, smiling, wiping his hands on the cloth. "I'll consider it if my current job doesn't work out." Ethan walked along the deck, his hand trailing over the old wooden railing. The peeling paint revealed worn wood beneath. In places, rusted metal creaked softly when he tested it with a gentle push. Ethan, examining the railing, furrowing his brow. This boat must have been running for a long time. Lila nodding, her eyes reflecting a hint of sadness. My father left it to me. Starlight is part of this town, but if I don't repair it soon, I'm afraid it won't last much longer. Ethan paused, watching Lila curiously. There was something in her voice, a connection and perseverance he rarely encountered. Ethan, why not take out a loan to fix it? Lila, leaning against the wheel, smiling bitterly. I tried, but I still have old debts. And honestly, I'm not sure fixing the boat will save it in the long run. She stopped for a moment, gazing out over the dark river, where the moonlight shimmered gently on the small ripples. Lila, speaking slowly. Hayes Maritime is planning to buy out the entire river. They want to modernize it, replacing small boats with luxury cruises. If that happens, boats like mine won't have a place anymore. Ethan froze. The name wasn't unfamiliar. It was his family's company, the very corporation his father and the board were negotiating with to acquire this stretch of the river. Ethan, hiding his surprise, keeping his voice calm. You're not considering selling the boat? Lila, turning to him, her gaze firm. Never. My father always said Starlight isn't just a boat. It's a family heirloom and part of this town's legacy. I won't let them erase it. Ethan looked into Lila's eyes reflecting the soft glow of the dock lights, filled with both determination and quiet worry. A heavy feeling settled in Ethan's chest. He knew that if Lila discovered he was the heir to Hayes Maritime, the very company threatening the river, everything could unravel. Ethan wasn't ready for that. Instead, he smiled faintly, turning his gaze toward the river. Ethan, I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm on leave and wanted to learn more about boats. Maybe I can help you fix it a little. Lila, eyeing him skeptically. A mechanical engineer spending his time on a failing boat? Ethan, shrugging. I like old things. They feel more real than those shiny modern ships. Lila laughed softly. Lila, you're the first person to say that. Most people prefer the flashy boats out there. Ethan, glancing at the glowing lights of passing cruise ships. Shiny doesn't always mean better. When their work was done, Ethan stood by the railing, gazing at the shimmering water below. Lila draped a cloth over her shoulder, preparing to leave. Lila, looking up at the starry sky. You know, sometimes I think if Starlight could talk, it would have so many stories to tell about this town's best years. Ethan, smiling softly. Maybe. And I think you're the only one who can keep those stories alive. Lila turned to Ethan, her eyes bright against the night. Lila, extending her hand. Thanks for the help. I have an early trip tomorrow, but if you're free, come back. I could use another deckhand. Ethan, shaking her hand, a faint smile playing on his lips. I'll think about it. Good luck to you and Starlight. Ethan stepped off the boat, blending into the dwindling crowd along the pier. But Lila's words lingered with him. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He realized he wasn't just drawn to the old boat or the charm of the town, but to Lila herself and her unwavering determination to protect her family's legacy. Yet Ethan knew the truth about his identity couldn't stay hidden forever, and when Lila found out, everything might change. Chapter 3. Building Bonds, Understanding and Support. The following afternoon, Ethan returned to the Starlight. Something about this riverside town kept pulling him back. Perhaps the serenity of the river. But deep down, he knew it was Lila's smile that made him stay. The boat was preparing for its late afternoon cruise. Passengers trickled aboard as Lila checked the engine near the rear of the cabin. Lila waving when she spotted Ethan on the dock. Back for more free labor? Ethan shrugging as he stepped onto the boat. I figured I should try something new. Maybe this is the start of a second career. Lila chuckling softly. Careful. This boat doesn't pay much. The boat set off, gliding smoothly over the river. Lila steered, while occasionally glancing at Ethan, who sat on one of the weathered benches nearby. Halfway through the cruise, the engine sputtered and let out a strange clanking sound before stopping altogether. Starlight drifted silently in the middle of the river. Lila, glancing at the control panel, sighing but smiling anyway. Looks like Starlight wants to call it a day early. Ethan, watching her surprised. You're unusually calm. I'd think being stranded mid-river isn't ideal. Lila, gently patting the control panel as if to comfort the boat. Being upset won't fix the engine. My father always said, a smile makes everything just a little easier. Ethan crouched beside her to check the engine. He wasn't the mechanical engineer he had claimed to be, but years working in his family's shipbuilding company had taught him more than enough. Ethan, tightening a loose part. I think this was just loose. It should hold for now, but you'll want to check it thoroughly later. Lila, smiling at him. Looks like I've got a talented engineer on board. Ethan, grinning. He's not working for free forever. The engine roared back to life, and Starlight continued its course, reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. Ethan began to notice something about Lila. No matter the problem, no matter how tight money was, she never complained. Whenever the engine failed, she smiled. When few passengers showed up, she simply shrugged. Lila, I guess people felt like staying home today. It was as if every setback flowed by as gently as the river beneath them. Ethan found himself drawn to her. Lila's optimism wasn't forced. It was part of her. In his world, people valued wealth, status, and grand success. But here, on this old, creaky boat, Ethan felt free to be himself. Beside Lila, he wasn't Ethan Hayes, heir to Hayes Maritime. He was just Ethan, helping a woman preserve her father's legacy. That evening, after the passengers had gone, Ethan and Lila sat on the deck, gazing at the town lights reflecting off the water. Lila, leaning on the railing, eyes distant. This town has changed a lot. But every time I take Starlight down this river, I feel like my father is still here, standing on this boat with me. Ethan nodding, his voice low. Some things are meant to stay, just the way they are. Ethan didn't say it aloud, but deep inside, a thought was beginning to take root. He wanted to help Lila save Starlight, not just for the boat, but for her, the woman with the courage and determination to preserve a piece of the town's soul. Chapter 4. The Secret Revealed. The sun rose high, casting a golden glow over the shimmering river, reflecting softly on the weathered hull of Starlight. The dock remained quiet, with only a few small boats gently bobbing with the rhythm of the water. Ethan arrived earlier than usual, sleeves rolled up, crouched beneath the helm, working on the jammed rudder. His hands moved steadily, eyes focused on the intricate details of the boat. Nearby, Lila sat checking the logbook, but every so often she stole glances at Ethan. Her eyes lingered on him, the way he concentrated, the way his hair ruffled slightly in the morning breeze. She smiled, a soft, subtle smile that carried more thoughts than she let show. Since Ethan's arrival, everything had felt easier. He wasn't just a stranger who had stumbled onto her boat. He had become someone she could count on, quietly stepping in whenever Starlight encountered trouble. There were days when Starlight stalled mid-river and Ethan was there. When financial difficulties weighed heavily on her, he rolled up his sleeves without hesitation, helping with repairs and asking for nothing in return. Lila felt lucky. His presence made her feel safer, like she wasn't carrying the burden alone. But with that sense of comfort came an unsettling thought. Why was he doing this? Ethan never asked for pay. There was no reward, no expectation, just his quiet smile whenever she thanked him. Lila wondered if perhaps she had begun to rely on Ethan's presence more than she should. Lila, teasing, trying to mask her thoughts. I'm starting to think you should change careers. Maybe being Starlight's engineer is your true calling. Ethan glanced up, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he wiped his hands on a nearby cloth. Ethan, grinning as he adjusted the engine. Don't say that too soon. I might take you up on it. The engine let out a faint clank, causing Ethan to frown and lean in closer, tightening a loose rudder component. Lila watched him silently. In her eyes there was gratitude, but also something else. Fear. Fear that one day when everything returned to normal, Ethan would step off Starlight and never come back. Just then, a voice rang out from the dock, shattering the peaceful morning air. Business associate, calling out in surprise. Ethan Hayes. What are you doing here? I thought you were preparing for the meeting to acquire this stretch of the river. Ethan froze. He stood upright, turning slowly to face the source of the voice, only to meet Lila's wide-eyed gaze. The smile that had rested so easily on her lips vanished, replaced by confusion and suspicion. Lila, her voice low, eyes narrowing. Who are you, really? Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked into Lila's expectant eyes, knowing he could no longer keep the truth from her. Ethan, softly locking eyes with her. I'm Ethan Hayes. My family owns Hayes Maritime. His words landed like a heavy stone, weighing down the air between them. Lila's grip tightened around the ledger in her hands, her expression darkening. Lila, coldly, her voice trembling. So why did you approach me? To buy Starlight and tear it apart? Ethan stepped forward, desperate to explain. Ethan, hurriedly. No! It's not like that. I never intended to take over this boat. I came here because I needed peace, and I never expected to meet you. Or Starlight. Lila shook her head, a faint, bitter smile forming on her lips. Lila, peace? A corporate heir seeking peace on the very boat his family's trying to destroy? Ethan remained silent. Even though every word he had spoken was the truth, he knew that to Lila, his silence and secrecy felt like betrayal. Lila, lowering her voice, her eyes softening with hurt, I thought, at the very least, you were someone I could trust. Ethan's chest tightened. Ethan, Lila, I never meant to deceive you. I care about this boat, and I care about you. Lila held his gaze for a long moment, but the hurt in her eyes was undeniable. Lila, taking a deep breath, turning toward the helm. I think you should leave the boat. And if Starlight disappears, I hope you remember that someone tried to save it. Ethan took a step forward, wanting to close the space between them, but something stopped him. He realized that no words could ease Lila's disappointment in that moment. With a quiet nod, he stepped off the boat and walked away, leaving behind Starlight and the woman he wasn't ready to lose. Chapter 5. Ethan Seeks Redemption. That afternoon, Ethan left the Starlight, but his heart felt heavier with every step. The image of Lila standing silently on the deck, disappointment etched across her face, haunted him all the way back to his hotel. From his room, Ethan gazed out the window at the river glimmering under the fading light. He knew that if nothing was done, this part of the river would soon be replaced by larger modern vessels. And Starlight, along with everything it represented, would be gone forever. He hesitated for a moment, then pulled out his phone and dialed his father's number. Ethan, firmly. Dad, I want to cancel the river acquisition project. It's a mistake. Ethan's father, surprised and skeptical. A mistake? Ethan, you know how long this has been in the works. We can't stop now because of personal feelings. Ethan, it's not personal. This river is part of the town's heritage. If we destroy it, we erase a piece of its history. A heavy silence lingered on the other end of the line. Ethan's father sighing, What do you propose instead? Ethan, resolute. I want to create a preservation fund to protect the small boats along the river, especially the Starlight. If we're serious about investing here, we should preserve what belongs to this place. His father remained quiet, but after a long pause, he agreed to let Ethan handle the matter his way. That evening, Ethan sat at his laptop and drafted an email to the Hayes Maritime Board of Directors. Subject, cancellation of river acquisition, proposal for River Heritage Preservation Fund. Body, I propose establishing a preservation fund to maintain and support the small boats along the town's river. These vessels are not just for tourism. They are a cultural legacy deeply intertwined with the community. Moving forward with the acquisition project risks significant damage to the area's cultural value. Ethan pressed send and leaned back in his chair, exhaling softly as a weight lifted from his shoulders. A few days later, as Lila checked Starlight's engine, a thick envelope from the local bank arrived in her hands. Frowning, she opened it to find a stack of documents confirming that her loan application for the boat's repairs had been fully approved. Lila's breath caught in her throat. At the bottom of the papers lay a handwritten note. Let Starlight keep shining on this river. A friend. She read the letter multiple times, her heart caught between suspicion and gratitude. Sitting down on one of the benches, she felt both relieved and confused. Lila, murmuring to herself. Ethan. There was no doubt in her mind who was behind it. Despite the lingering anger over Ethan's deception, Lila couldn't deny the sincerity behind his actions. Few people would abandon such a significant business venture just to save an old boat like Starlight. That afternoon, as the boat docked, Lila stood by the railing, watching the path leading away from the harbor. Ethan appeared in the distance, standing quietly, as if uncertain whether to approach. Lila crossed her arms, eyeing him with a mixture of curiosity and softened resolve. Lila calling out, "You think a letter and some money in my account will fix everything?" Ethan, stepping closer with a faint smile. "No, but it's the only way I could help without making you angrier." Lila stared at him for a long moment before a small smile crept onto her lips. Lila, "I'm still not over it, but thank you." Ethan, "You don't need to thank me. Starlight deserves to survive, and I just wanted to make things right." They stood together, silently watching the sun dip below the horizon, the reflection dancing across the calm water. Lila felt the last remnants of her frustration fade, replaced by something gentler, something warmer. Ethan knew it would take time, but he was willing to wait and do whatever it took to rebuild the trust he had lost. Chapter 6. Forgiveness and New Beginnings. The late afternoon sun dipped behind the distant mountains, casting a golden hue across the calm river. The dock was quieter than usual, bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Lila stood on the deck of Starlight, her fingers grazing over the fresh coat of paint and the newly secured bolts. The boat felt alive again, stronger and more radiant than ever. Yet despite the satisfaction of seeing the boat restored, something lingered in her thoughts. After everything, Ethan had saved Starlight. He had done so quietly, asking for nothing in return but for the boat to continue sailing. But deep down, Lila knew. It wasn't just about the boat. She needed to see him. The next afternoon, Ethan stood by the dock, leaning against the railing, gazing out at the river. He hadn't returned to Starlight in days. Even though Lila had secured the loan and the repairs were done, he wasn't sure if she wanted to see him again. Lila, softly from behind, "I thought I'd find you here." Ethan turned around, meeting Lila's gaze. A gentle breeze lifted strands of her hair as she stepped closer. Ethan quietly, a bit hesitant, "I didn't think you'd want to see me yet." Lila, "I thought so too, but then I realized I needed to thank you. Starlight wouldn't be here without you." For a moment, Ethan said nothing, warmth flickering in his eyes. Ethan, "I didn't do it just for the boat." Lila, raising a brow in surprise, "Then why?" Ethan, meeting her gaze, voice steady, "Because I believe in you, and because I love you, Lila." Lila didn't respond immediately. She looked deeply into Ethan's eyes, seeing the sincerity and the flicker of uncertainty. It was as if he feared she might walk away and leave him standing there. Lila, smiling softly, "I was angry, but I understand now. Some things are worth forgiving." Ethan exhaled, a quiet relief washing over him. Ethan, "So does that mean you forgive me?" Lila, with a playful tilt of her head, "Maybe, but you'll have to work on Starlight for at least another month." They both laughed, and for the first time, Ethan felt like he truly belonged here. 1 month later. Time passed quickly. Starlight was no longer just a sightseeing vessel. It had become a symbol of resilience, restoration, and a love that had quietly blossomed from the simplest things. On a bright moonlit night, Lila decided to organize a special cruise, just for her and Ethan. The boat drifted smoothly along the river, reflecting the golden moonlight. The soft lapping of the waves created a gentle symphony, the only sound accompanying the quiet night. Lila stood at the bow, gazing out at the endless stretch of river ahead. Ethan approached, carrying a small box in his hand. Ethan, his voice warm, standing behind her. "Lila." She turned, and at that moment, Ethan knelt down, his eyes glimmering under the soft glow of the moon. "Ethan," earnestly, "you helped me find what truly matters. Not business, not grand projects, but this place, these people, and you. Let me stand by your side and protect this river, forever." The small ring in the box shimmered under the soft light, simple but meaningful. Lila looked at Ethan for a long time, her heart pounding softly in her chest. Lila, smiling, nodding, "I think Starlight will need a long-term partner." Ethan's smile lit up as he gently slipped the ring onto her finger. 1 year later, the last rays of sunlight stretched across the gentle river, casting a warm glow over the water. On the deck of Starlight, Ethan Hayes stood in a simple suit, carefully adjusting the flower pinned to his lapel. Today wasn't just another river cruise, it was his wedding day, to Lila Monroe. The river was calm, the dock adorned with flowers and lanterns. Townspeople gathered along the riverbank, where Starlight, now fully restored and gleaming, stood anchored, carrying with it the dreams and love of two people deeply connected to this place. Lila stepped out from the cabin, her white dress flowing gently as she made her way to Ethan. Her soft gaze met his, and for a brief moment, the entire town seemed to pause. Ethan, taking her hand, his voice sincere, "This past year, you didn't just help me find myself again. You showed me the true value of what we're doing." Lila, smiling, "And you helped me save the boat and preserve the soul of this town." As the priest recited the vows under the golden sunset, Ethan slid the ring onto Lila's finger. Applause echoed along the dock, celebrating not just their union, but the journey they had taken together. After the wedding, Ethan and Lila didn't just continue running Starlight. Together, they took the helm of Hayes Maritime. Under their leadership, the company shifted its focus towards sustainable development, preserving the river and supporting the local community. Old boats were restored and small vessel tours revived, honoring the cultural heritage of the town's waterways. Instead of tearing down the old to chase profit, they embraced innovation to create lasting value. The first River Festival, organized by Ethan and Lila, drew hundreds of visitors. Starlight led a parade of boats down the river, while the shore buzzed with lights and laughter. Lila stood beside Ethan, resting her head on his shoulder as they watched the vibrant town glowing under the festival lights. Lila, gazing into the distance, "I think my father would be proud." Ethan, squeezing her hand gently, "We kept our promise, and this is just the beginning." As the moon reflected on the water, Starlight continued to shine, a symbol of love, perseverance, and the enduring values they had built together. Thank you for following our story. How would you rate this tale from 1 to 10? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, and share this story with others.